Ever had a Karen measure your grass? My gate camera fired a sharp truck beep as an HOA officer snapped photos of my tractor at dawn like he'd caught contraband sitting in my own driveway under the porch glare. They slapped a final warning on my gate and called it a Class 3 vehicle, then rolled in their partnered tow truck chain rattling like they owned the place. But the crooked permit stamp on their fake order smeared when I tapped it pay-per-click, and the sheriff's badge caught the light as he stepped in. Next week, Trail Guard's whole yard sat behind evidence tape, and the HOA went very, very quiet. The gate camera let out a single sharp beep at 6:12 a.m., cutting through the quiet like a smoke alarm. I straightened up from my rusted tool bench wrench still in my hand and looked toward the end of the driveway. A man in a light blue polo stood by my tractor phone, held up snapping pictures like he'd caught a wild animal out of season. Steam curled from the thermos of coffee on the bench beside me. The grass glittered with lake moisture, and the chill in the air crept through my flannel. I set the wrench down, capped the thermos, and started walking. My tractor sat exactly where I'd left it the night before, nose pointed at the gate, rear tires on gravel front tires just kissing the edge of the lawn. Faded red paint, one cracked light hood scarred with old work. Hanging from the ignition was my grandfather's brass keychain, a tiny wrench charm worn smooth from years of worry twisting. Just beyond it, bolted crooked to the HOA signpost, was a metal placard, Tow Enforcement Partnered Vendor Trail Guard Towing. One of the screws was loose, the whole thing tilted like it didn't quite belong. "Can I help you?" I called. The man in the polo flinched and turned. Late 40s, soft around the middle clipboard hugged to his chest. He glanced at the camera on my gate, little red light blinking, then back at me. "Morning," he said. "You must be Mr. Lane. That's what my bills say." He cleared his throat and tried to look official. "I'm Dale Briggs, enforcement officer for the Cedar Lake Ridge HOA," he said. "We've had multiple complaints about this vehicle." He pointed at the tractor with the end of his clipboard. I stopped next to it, laid a hand on the hood. The metal was cold under my palm. "This isn't a vehicle," I said. "It's farm equipment. Big difference." He flipped his clipboard open, papers rustling. "Section 12, Exterior Standards," he recited. "No oversized or commercial vehicles may be stored in driveways or on lawns where visible from the street. That includes tractors, construction equipment, and non-operational units." "There's that word," I said. "Stored. This isn't storage, it's parked. On my land." Dale's eyes slid past me toward the lake houses across the road like he was weighing how many of their complaints he was carrying. "Point is, he said we're out of compliance here. I came to serve notice and explain your options." "Then knock on my door," I said, instead of sneaking up with a camera at sunrise. He shifted his weight uncomfortable. "I did knock," he said. Nobody answered. "Maybe because normal people are getting ready for work inside," I said. "You want to talk to a man about his tractor? You talk to the man. Not just your camera." A distant rumble cut through our back and forth. An engine heavier than a family SUV. I turned my head and saw a blue tow truck easing around the bend at the far end of the street. Amber lights on top flashed lazily in the morning haze. "Let me guess," I said. "More of your options." Dale didn't answer. He just looked guilty. The truck rolled to a stop in front of my place. Trail Guard Towing was painted on the door in bold white letters. The driver killed the lights, left the engine running, and climbed out. Stocky, mid-30s reflective vest cap pulled low. "This the Lane property?" he asked. Dale nodded quickly, relief written all over his face. "Yep," he said. "Unit's right there. We've got a violation on file. Exterior vehicle Class 3. He pulled out a form, tore it from the pad, and stepped toward me. "This is your notice," he said. "Notice of exterior violation, vehicle Class 3. You can appeal after removal." I didn't take the paper. I pulled my phone from my back pocket, thumbed the camera on, and held it up so it caught Dale, the truck, and the tractor in one frame. "Go ahead," I said. "Say it again, for the record." "Is that necessary?" he asked. "That depends," I said. "You planning on touching my tractor?" The driver sighed, walked past us toward the front of the tractor. He gave it a quick once-over, then glanced at Dale. "This the one," he muttered. Dale jerked his chin. "Yeah," he said. "Board wants it gone." The driver reached for the control lever on the boom steel, groaning as it lowered. The chain on the hook rattled against the truck bed. "Hold up," I said, stepping sideways close enough that he had to stop or bump me. "You hook that chain, and this video goes straight to the sheriff, along with your plate, your name, and that notice." He paused, eyes flicking to my phone, then to the camera on the gate. Dale huffed. "Mr. Lane, this is standard enforcement," he said. "We have authority. The board approved contracting trail guards specifically for situations like this, authority from who I asked. You got a judge's signature county permit, or just a bunch of neighbors that don't like what hard work looks like?" The driver scratched his chin. "Look," he said quietly to Dale more than to me, "if this is farm equipment and the land's his, I'm not sure we're clear to just grab it." "Marcia wants it gone today," Dale snapped. Her words, not mine. There it was, the name behind the curtain. "Marcia," I said. "That the queen of this little kingdom, Miss Denton, is the HOA president," he said stiffly, "and she expects compliance." "Good for her," I said, "but you two aren't dragging my tractor off my dirt on a Friday morning because Ms. Denton expects compliance." Dale's jaw worked. The tow driver lifted his hands a few inches, backing off a step. "I'm not trying to get sideways with the county," the driver said. "We already had a warning last year. I'm not making another bad call, so don't," I said. For a moment everything went quiet except the idle rumble of the tow truck and a boat engine somewhere on the lake. Dale's shoulders sagged just a little. "Fine," he said finally. "If you want to make this difficult, we'll do it the hard way. We'll come back with authority." He shoved the notice at me. I let it brush my chest, then watched it flutter onto the gravel. He turned and marched toward the truck, the driver trailing behind him. The amber lights flicked back on as the rig pulled away from my gate. I bent to pick up the paper, folded it once, and slid it into my back pocket. The gate camera clicked as the motion alert timed out the red light going dark. I looked at my tractor, at the crooked trail guard sign with its loose screw, and felt something hot and steady settle in my chest. "All right," I murmured. "Let's see what your authority looks like when the law sees it." The mailbox let out a sharp click when I pulled its metal door open. Only one envelope sat inside a thick paper HOA return address, the kind of mail that tried too hard to look official. I carried it to the porch, tore it open with my thumb, and unfolded the letter under the early light. Bold words slapped the page. "Final warning. Tow scheduled within 48 hours." For a couple seconds, I just stared at it, reading the line again to make sure they were actually serious. Below the headline was the usual wall of threats, administrative fees, removal charges, storage penalties bundled into a tidy paragraph crafted to make someone sweat. Then I saw it. A faint footnote buried in the bottom margin, vendor trail guard towing license pending review. "Pending review?" I muttered. That's a cute way of saying not valid. I folded the notice once, slid it into my jacket, locked the door behind me, and drove to the Blue Star Diner, the only place in town where you could get breakfast gossip and free legal advice, all for the price of a coffee. The bell over the door jingled as I walked in. Greased bacon and burnt coffee drifted through the air like familiar music. Old men in ball caps lined the counter, leaning over mugs as if nothing in the world mattered except hash browns and weather patterns. "Morning, Cody," the waitress called. "Frank's in the back." Good. That was exactly who I needed. Frank Mallory sat in the last booth beneath the diner's faded bulletin board. It held flyers for everything from lost dogs to church potlucks, plus one bright green poster titled "Know Your Property Rights." The thing looked like a joke last month. Not today. He raised an eyebrow when he saw me. "You look like someone told you the county's outlawed tractors," he said. "Close enough." I slid into the seat across from him and set the envelope on the table. He opened it, smoothing the paper flat with broad, oil-stained fingers. A couple regulars shifted in their seats, pretending not to listen. Frank didn't talk while he read. He just grunted at certain lines, his eyebrows drifting higher the farther he got. When he reached the bold headline, he tapped it twice with his index finger. "They really put this in writing," he said. "Final warning. Like you're a teenager breaking curfew." He kept reading. "Exterior Vehicle Class 3, he murmured. That's not even a real designation. They invented it so they could sound authoritative. Well, they fooled themselves, I said. Frank lifted the page, squinting at the bottom. Then he shook his head. There's your first hole, he said. Trailguard's license hasn't cleared the renewal process. Pending review means they're operating without a full county permit. That means I said they can't tow anything. That means Frank corrected, if they touch that tractor you'll have the sheriff on your side before sundown. He reached into his jacket pocket and slid out a folded printout. I pulled this a month ago, he said. Didn't know who'd need it. Now I do. I opened it. County towing permit status. Trail guard towing status. Suspended pending review. I stared at the document. You've been holding on to this, just waiting for the right moment, he said, and the right stubborn fool to use it. The waitress dropped off fresh coffee. Frank wrapped his hands around the mug, leaned forward, and lowered his voice. HOA can write letters, he said. They can fine you, threaten you, annoy you. But they can't tow farm equipment from privately deeded land, and definitely not with a vendor whose license is half expired. The diner felt suddenly quieter. Forks slowed. Chairs creaked. People listened while pretending they weren't. So, what's my move, I asked. Frank tapped the notice. You record everything. Times, plates, voices. Every attempt they make. If Trailguard hooks so much as a chain on your property, you'll hand this to the sheriff, and Trailguard will be lucky if they keep a single truck on the road. Sounds like a plan. He reached across the table and set a firm hand on my shoulder, a silent beat, steady and grounding. You're not dealing with a real threat, he said. You're dealing with people who think authority is the same thing as paperwork. But paperwork cuts both ways. My phone buzzed on the table. A group text notification from the HOA. Frank watched as I flipped it over. Tow scheduled at Lane Residence tomorrow, 9:00 a.m. Please keep the street clear. My jaw clenched. Frank nodded once like a man marking a date on a calendar. Well, he said, looks like your show starts tomorrow. The gate camera let out a double beep at 9:03 a.m. The same sound as yesterday, only sharper, like it already knew trouble was rolling in. I stepped onto the driveway just as the Trailguard tow truck rounded the corner. Dust plumed behind it, blowing across the asphalt in thin tan sheets. The sun hit its chrome grille, throwing a glare that made the street look like a confrontation stage. The driver slowed, swung the truck toward my tractor, and parked at an angle that blocked half the lane. Behind him, Marcia Denton marched up the sidewalk holding a thick folder and looking like she'd spent all morning practicing her authority in the mirror. Dale Briggs trailed her clutching a new clipboard like he thought it gave him power. Marcia pulled out a single-page document with a bright red stamp splashed across the top. This is an administrative order, she announced, effective immediately. My gate camera blinked red as it recorded every second. I walked forward, keeping my voice calm. Hold it up where I can see. She raised the paper. The red stamp bled into the fibers, but the emblem was tilted too crooked to be county, too sloppy to be legal. A cheap office store stamp, pretending to be government. I lifted my phone and zoomed in. What judge signed this? She blinked. Not slow fast. Nervous fast. It doesn't require a judge, she said. The HOA board executed it this morning. That's not how administrative orders work, I said. County orders come with docket numbers, court initials, seal placement aligned at 45 degrees. Yours is crooked. Dale stepped forward like he'd been summoned. It's valid, he insisted. The board approved towing authority. Authority over what I asked. Front lawns, mailboxes. Sunrise photos. Because you don't have towing authority over farm equipment on deeded land, and you sure don't have the county on your side. The driver lowered the boom chain, rattling like a warning. I planted myself between him and the tractor. A neighbor from across the street slowed his dog walk, pretending to fiddle with the leash while recording on his phone. The mailman rolled up to the next box, stopped mid-reach, and watched. The whole street seemed to lean in, waiting. Marcia snapped her fingers toward the tractor. Hook it. The tow driver hesitated. Ma'am, yesterday, you said I said today is an order, she barked. He swallowed hard and reached for the decal trail guard had slapped on my tractor's side panel during the first attempt peeling at the corner. The adhesive resisted, and he yanked harder. My keychain, the tiny brass wrench my grandfather carried, slipped from where it hung on the ignition and clattered onto the asphalt. The sound cut through everything. Prop number 2 ran. I stepped forward and picked it up and dusted it carefully. My hand shook, but my voice didn't. "You're touching property. You have no right to touch," I said. The driver backed up a step. Before Marcia could spit out a retort, another sound joined the scene, a short chirp of a county cruiser's siren. A patrol vehicle rolled to a stop behind the tow truck. Deputy Keegan stepped out mid-30s clean uniform, the tired look of someone who deals with HOA complaints more than actual crime. He glanced from the truck to Marcia to me. "Morning," he said. "We got a call from a neighbor. Report of a disturbance involving a towing attempt." Marcia strode toward him like she owned the county. "We have full rights here," she said. "We're executing an administrative directive." Keegan held up a hand. "I'll look at the paperwork." She handed it over. He unfolded it twice, then frowned. His eyes scanned the red seal, the slanted stamp, the missing county lines. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Ma'am, he said this isn't a county administrative order. It's an HOA administrative order," she corrected, defensive heat rising in her voice. "We have enforcement powers." "Enforcement powers," he said slowly, "don't include impersonating county documents." Dale stiffened. "It's not impersonation." "It sure looks like impersonation," Keegan said. "And the sheriff's office takes that seriously." The tow driver cleared his throat. "Officer, I'm not trying to get into trouble here. I suggest," Keegan said, folding the fake order, "nobody hooks anything until this gets reviewed properly." Marcia's face flushed red, matching her fake stamp. "You can't stop us," she snapped. "The board has spoken." I nodded toward the camera above the gate. "And so has the law," I said. "This is all recorded. Yesterday's attempt, too." Keegan looked at me, then at Marcia again. "You might want," he said quietly, "to bring this directly to the sheriff. They'll want to see this document." It hung in the air like a shift in weather, the first hint that this fight wasn't staying on our street. Marcia jerked the paper out of Keegan's hand. "We'll tow it anyway," she hissed, stepping backward toward the truck. "With or without your cooperation." The tow driver didn't move. The street held its breath. Wind pushed dust across our feet. Then Marcia spun on her heel, stormed toward her SUV, and slammed the door so hard the window rattled. Dale scrambled after her. The tow truck backed away slowly. Boom, still hanging in the air like a weapon it wasn't allowed to use. As the convoy rolled off, Deputy Keegan gave me a small nod. "Keep your videos," he said. "You may need them soon." I looked down at the brass keychain in my hand, scuffed now slightly bent. "Yeah," I said. "Sooner than they think." The door chime at the Blanco County Sheriff's Office gave a tired little ring as I stepped inside, the sound echoing off the disinfected floor. The place smelled faintly of chlorine someone had mopped recently, and not gently. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a sharp hum that made the room feel like an interrogation chamber even before anyone spoke. I approached the front desk and placed 2 items on the counter. 1. A USB drive labeled Tow Attempt Number 2. Video evidence. 2. The fake administrative tow order with its crooked red stamp. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "Sheriff's in. Want me to tell him he'll want to see this," I said. She looked at the damaged corner of the red stamp, then at my face, then nodded like she'd seen this sort of HOA mess too many times. A door buzzed open behind the counter. "Send him back," a voice called. I followed the hallway past faded department photos. Sheriff Randall Briggs sat behind a wide oak desk, sleeves rolled to the elbow glasses perched on the end of his nose. He was late 50s, square shoulders, and the expression of a man who'd dealt with his share of nonsense but wasn't done fighting it. Officer Keegan stood beside him, arms crossed. When he saw me, he gave a small nod. Confirmation that we weren't starting from zero. "Morning," Sheriff Briggs said. "Close the door." I did. Officer Keegan briefed me. He continued. "Said you brought something to look at." I slid the USB and fake order across the desk. He examined the paper, first holding it up to the fluorescent light. The crooked red seal looked even uglier under the brightness. "Who issued this?" he asked. "HOA president. Claims it's a valid administrative order." Briggs let out a short exhale through his nose. "That's not even the right type of paper stock," he muttered. "County seals don't smear like this." He tapped the edge of the red stamp with his thumb. "And the angle's wrong. County seal is placed at exactly 45 degrees. This is, I don't know, 30, maybe less." Keegan leaned in. It looked wrong on scene. Briggs motioned to me. "Video." I nodded. He plugged in the USB. The monitor flickered, then the footage loaded the tow truck, the crooked stamp, Marcia barking orders, the chain rattling, the neighbor filming across the street. My voice steady but hard. The keychain hitting the asphalt. The sheriff watched without interrupting. When the video ended, he rewound one part, freezing on the tow truck logo, Trail Guard Towing Vendor ID 41882. He zoomed in, then opened a file on his computer. His fingers clicked through several internal databases. Then he stopped. His eyebrows rose. "Well, I'll be," he said. I leaned forward. "What is it?" He turned the monitor slightly so Keegan could see not me, but his voice filled in the rest. "Trail Guard's towing permit was suspended last fall, operating under review since July. They're not allowed to perform removals anywhere in the county, let alone on private agricultural land." Keegan blinked. "Suspended? For what?" Briggs clicked again. 3 warnings in 12 months. Unauthorized removals. Improper notice. And 1 complaint about impersonating county authority. He printed a sheet, artifact number 4, county permit suspension record, and slid it onto the desk next to the fake order. "It gets worse," Briggs said. "If a vendor operates during a suspension, that's not a civil violation. That's a criminal one, and anyone instructing them might be tied to it." The humming lights buzzed louder, or maybe the room just felt quieter around them. I folded my arms. "Sheriff, yesterday they tried to tow my tractor with a forged order. Today they'll try again. They said as much." Briggs studied me. Not skeptical, calculating. "They touch it again," he said, slow and deliberate. "That becomes evidence of an illegal towing operation." Keegan shifted his stance. "Should we notify Briggs?" Lifted a hand. "No, not yet." He leaned back, eyes narrowing like he could already see the path ahead. "I need you," he said to me, "to leave the fake order and the video with us. All of it. I brought copies," I said. "You can keep the originals." "Good." He stacked the evidence neatly. "This won't get buried, and it won't get handled by some part-time board enthusiast who thinks HOA bylaws outrank state law." His tone carried a weight different from irritation, something closer to intent. I looked at him carefully. "Sheriff, you've dealt with Trail Guard before." He didn't answer immediately, just gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "I've heard complaints," he said quietly. "More than you'd think." A colder draft seemed to slip through the office, though no door had opened. "So what happens now?" I asked. Sheriff Briggs pushed the evidence pile toward Keegan. "Chain of custody starts immediately. I'll handle the rest." His voice held finality, the kind that changes the direction of a fight. "And you," he added, pointing at me with the folded permit suspension report, "keep your tractor exactly where it is. Don't move it an inch. If they show up again, call us before you even step outside." I nodded. "And, Sheriff?" I asked. He looked up. "Thank you." Briggs didn't smile, but something in his jaw loosened just barely. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "This is only getting started." The microphone made a sharp click when the hearing officer switched it on. The sound bounced across the narrow room, settling into the wooden benches like a warning shot. "County Hearing 1207, he announced. "Proceedings will begin now. Minnie Cliff number 8. I took my seat at the right table. The air smelled like old paper pine cleaner and nerves someone's, maybe everyone's. At the front hung a laminated ordnance poster, Towing Ordinance, FAR 1207, County Authority Only. Across from me, the HOA board filed in Marcia Denton, jaw locked, Dale eyes down, The usual entourage of people who confused paperwork with power. One seat over the chair designated for trail guard towing representative sat empty, a blank space that felt louder than any accusation. Foreshadow delivered. Sheriff Briggs stepped in through the side door, nodding to the hearing officer. Officer Keegan followed, arms full of folders marked Exhibits A.D. I straightened my back. This was the turn. The hearing officer adjusted his glasses. We're here to review allegations regarding unauthorized towing action, improper use of administrative documents, and vendor operation without a valid permit. He tapped the microphone again. Evidence submitted by the sheriff's office has been entered into record. Briggs set a thick binder on the front table. The sound it made, thud, was the kind of sound that made shoulders stiffen. I glanced behind me. Frank stood near the back wall, arms crossed, chin lifted, mentor re-entering on cue. The hearing officer opened the binder. Exhibit A, he read. Video documentation of attempted tow on January 14th submitted by Mr. Lane. The TV screen blinked on. The room dimmed automatically. My video filled the display. Trail guard's truck, Marcia barking orders, Dale waving the fake order like a traffic wand, the chain shaking. A few people in the audience exhaled softly. The hearing officer continued. Exhibit B, administrative tow order provided by Prairie Ridge, HOA. He held it up. Even from 10 feet away, the crooked red stamp looked worse under fluorescent lights. This document, he said, does not match any authorized county format. Marcia shifted in her chair. Dale pretended to take notes. Exhibit C, vendor permit status for trail guard towing. Officer Keegan passed the sheet forward. The hearing officer read aloud, status suspended. Vendor prohibited from towing or removing property pending review. He paused. Sheriff Briggs, would you like to speak to this? Briggs stepped forward. His voice carried the cold, steady weight of a man who didn't need to raise it to control a room. Trail guard's permit was suspended last July after 3 violations. They were explicitly instructed they could not perform removals anywhere within county limits. Yet they attempted a tow on Mr. Lane's land twice. The hearing officer nodded, and the HOA's authority to tow farm equipment. No such authority, Briggs replied. Private agricultural equipment on private deeded land is under state agricultural code, not HOA covenants. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Briggs wasn't done. Finally, he said, lifting the fake order, this document is not only invalid, it constitutes document tampering, which is a misdemeanor under county law. The seal is inaccurate, the format is wrong, and the wording mimics county language without authorization. The hearing officer jotted notes, pen scraping angrily. Behind us, the door swung open. A man hurried in wearing a trail guard jacket, breathless, sweating. Sorry, I'm the trail guard rep. Traffic was. You're late, the hearing officer said. Take your seat. He did, carefully, like someone sitting on a bed of nails. The officer turned back to Briggs. Sheriff, based on evidence presented. What is your position? Briggs didn't hesitate. Based on the evidence, he said, voice firm and absolute. This operation, he gestured toward Marcia Dale, and the trail guard rep is illegal under county law. A ripple shook the room. The trail guard rep went pale. Marcia shot to her feet. We were just following procedure, she snapped. Our bylaws allow us to enforce visual standards. Briggs looked at her like a man inspecting a faulty engine. Procedure, he said, doesn't supersede the law. Silence. The hearing officer tapped his microphone again. Let the record reflect vendor operated without permit. HOA issued unauthorized administrative order. Attempted removal of protected agricultural equipment. He turned a page. Exhibit D. Transcript extract of today's statements. Artifact number 5 acquired. Marcia tried again. This is a misunderstanding. No, the hearing officer said sharply. It's a violation. The trail guard rep leaned forward. We only responded because HOA contracted us. That contract, Briggs interrupted, is invalid when your permit is suspended. The man sagged back in his chair. I kept my eyes forward, hands folded. Calm, letting the system work, letting the law carry the weight for once. The hearing officer finally closed the binder. "This hearing is not a trial," he said, "but the findings today will be forwarded for county review and potential legal action." Marcia's lips pressed into a thin line. "Further action," he repeated, "will be taken." He reached for the microphone one last time. Hearing adjourned. The sheriff's radio chirped a sharp beep, beep, followed by a burst of static. "Order approved." The dispatcher's voice crackled. "You're clear to execute." Sheriff Briggs reached up, pressed the button on his shoulder mic. "Copy that." We were parked just outside the chain-link fence of the trail guard yard, engines idling in a staggered line. The place looked tired, lean-to sheds, dented containers, tow trucks sitting in crooked rows on patched asphalt. The air smelled like old oil and burned brakes. I stood next to the sheriff's unit, a styrofoam coffee cup from the Blue Star Diner cooling in my hand. My other hand closed around the bent brass wrench on my keychain, the metal pressing into my palm. It still carried the small scar from when it hit the pavement during the second tow attempt. Inside the fence, I could see a cluster of tow trucks already pulled into a tighter formation. Someone had taped temporary paper tags to their windshield's evidence hold. Foreshadow in block letters. Sheriff Briggs shut off his engine and stepped out, boots hitting gravel. A pair of county deputies followed, hands resting easily on their belts, not hostile, just official. At the gate, a man in a trail guard jacket waited with a ring of keys that jingled in his shaking hand. "You the owner?" Briggs asked. The man swallowed. "Why, yes, sir. Tom Gallagher. I was told to meet you here." "You were," Briggs said. "Open the gate." "Mr. Gallagher." Tom fumbled with the lock, finally got it unclasped, and pushed the gate open with a squeal of protest from the hinges. The convoy of county vehicles rolled in slowly, tires crunching the gravel. I followed on foot beside the sheriff. Along the fence line just outside the property, a small knot of people had gathered. Neighbors, curious onlookers, and clustered off to one side, trying very hard not to be seen, were Marcia Denton and two members of the HOA board. Dale hovered half a step behind her, face pale. Near the back of the crowd, Frank leaned against his truck, arms folded, expression neutral. Our eyes met briefly. He didn't wave. He didn't need to. The sheriff stopped in the center of the yard, the shape of the place laid out around us like a diagram. Trucks on the left, office trailer on the right, storage container, dead ahead. He pulled a folded document from a manila envelope and cleared his throat. "This," he said, voice carrying across the yard, "is the county seizure order issued under Towing Ordinance 1207. Tom's breathing went shallow. Briggs read aloud each word, measured all vehicles' logs and equipment used in the HOA-related towing operation known as trail guard towing are hereby seized and shall be held as evidence pending further county review and potential criminal charges." He paused just long enough for the sentence to land. Tom's shoulders deflated. A murmur rippled through the watchers at the fence. I saw Marcia's jaw tense, her hand tightening on the folder she carried like it might shield her. The sheriff continued. "This includes, but is not limited to, tow trucks, service vehicles, winches, chains, straps, digital and paper logs, invoicing systems, and any documentation related to towing activities initiated at the request of the Cedar Lake Ridge Homeowners Association." He lowered the order, then turned to his deputies. "You know the drill." The deputies moved with unhurried purpose. One started affixing bright orange stickers to each truck door. Evidence. County. Do not move. Another began photographing VIN numbers and plates. A third headed for the small office trailer camera and evidence bags in hand. Tom watched like a man seeing parts of himself get labeled. "This is all of it?" he asked weakly. Briggs nodded. "All of it." Tom glanced toward the fence, toward Marcia, as if hoping she might step in claim ownership of the mess. She didn't move. It was like someone had drained the color from her face and left her hollow. "This is because of that one tractor," she called out, tone brittle. Briggs turned his head just enough to look at her. "This is because you ran a towing operation without a valid permit," he said. And you tried to use it to enforce authority you don't have. Her mouth opened like she might argue. No sound came out. I shifted the coffee cup to my left hand and squeezed the keychain in my right, feeling the bent edge dig into my skin. Silent beat. The yard noise faded behind the sharpness of that pressure grounding me. The sheriff stepped closer to me, speaking quietly enough that it was almost just between us, but loud enough that those nearby could hear if they wanted to. "They shouldn't have touched your tractor," he said. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't exactly comfort. It was a judgment. And it was final. Deputies finished tagging the last truck. One of them lifted a heavy metal lock onto the yard gate, clicking it shut with a decisive clank. Another walked past us, arms full of logbooks and hard drives, each one bearing a fresh evidence sticker. Tom scrubbed a hand over his face. "Sheriff, We only answered their calls," he stammered. "They said it was all within HOA rights." "That may be your story," Briggs said. "You'll have the chance to tell it under oath." He turned to the fence line. "Let me be clear," he said, voice rising. "From this moment on, Trail Guard Towing is not operating in this county. Any attempt to move these vehicles or equipment will be treated as tampering with evidence." A low rustle moved through the crowd. Someone lifted a phone recording. Frank gave a single small nod, as if checking off a box on a list only he could see. Marcia drew in a breath like she was sucking air through her teeth. "This is an overreaction," she said, words thin and sharp. "We were trying to maintain standards. Everything went through procedure." Procedure, Briggs said, doesn't erase a suspended permit. It doesn't legalize forged documents. And it doesn't give an HOA the power to drag farm equipment off private land. Dale took a half step forward. "We relied on the vendor. You relied on the idea the sheriff cut in that nobody would push back. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The yard said enough. The stickers did. The lock on the gate did." One of the deputies approached Briggs with a clipboard. "All trucks tagged," he reported. "Office cleared. Logs secured." Briggs signed at the bottom of the form pen, scratching steadily. "Good," he said. "We're done here." He handed part of the paperwork back to Tom. "You'll get your full copies," he said, "and your day to explain this. Until then, these units stay put." Tom nodded numbly. Behind the fence, a wind gust pushed at the loose end of the Trail Guard banner, making it flap like a flag on a ship that had already sunk. I finished the last swallow of lukewarm diner coffee and crushed the cup gently in my hand, the styrofoam crinkling with a hollow crunch. Marcia took a cautious step backward, then another. Her heels scuffed in the gravel. "This," she whispered more to herself than to anyone else, "this wasn't supposed to happen." The county bulletin board had always been a quiet corner of the park, 3 weathered panels of corkboard under a tin awning. But today it held a sheet that stopped people mid-stride. "Towing fee. Refund window. Open Monday." Someone had underlined refund in blue pen heavy enough to dent the paper. Minnie Cliff number 12. Right below it hung a folded HOA parcel map. Several lots were outlined in red marker. At the bottom, in square handwriting, bylaw revision pending. Foreshadow in plain sight. I stood there a moment, hands in my jacket pockets, breathing in the damp grass and drifting grill smoke from the community BBQ forming behind me. Kids chased each other around the folding chairs. Somebody plucked at an out-of-tune guitar, the rhythm loose but comforting. The late afternoon sun spilled warm gold across the lawn. People kept glancing my way, some shy, some bold, like they were waiting to speak but weren't sure how to start. A man in a camo hat made the first move. "They tagged my boat last fall," he said. "Said it was improperly stored. Paid the fee, 'cause I didn't want trouble." He shook his head, jaw tight. "Turns out trouble was the only thing we were buying." He clapped my shoulder once and walked off before I could answer. A woman with a denim vest approached next. "My son's pickup got a red sticker too," she said quietly. "Trail Guard wanted $200 to release the hold. We thought it was legit." Her hands trembled a little. "Thank you for making them look at it," she said. I nodded. County did the heavy lifting. "Maybe," she said, "but you made them look." She drifted back toward the tables where paper plates and pans of ribs were being passed around. Across the field, Deputy Keegan stood behind a folding table labeled Refund Questions. Stacks of single-page forms sat in neat columns. Every few minutes, another resident walked up, murmured something, and left lighter than they came. When he saw me, he lifted the corner of his clipboard in greeting. "You'd be surprised how many folks got hit with bogus tow readiness fees," he said. "People didn't know they could push back." "County covering the refunds?" I asked. He shook his head. "Trail guard assets," he said. "Seizure order carved out a restitution fund. Sheriff made sure of it." That earned a small smile out of me. Behind him, I spotted Frank leaning against his truck, arms folded. When our eyes met, he headed my way, steps deliberate but steady. "Got something for you," he said. From his shirt pocket, he pulled out my keychain, the little brass wrench charm that once hung crooked and bent. Now it gleamed softly, fully straightened, the metal buffed clean. "Took it to a machine shop," he said. They fixed the twist, tightened the ring. "Figured you shouldn't carry around something broken on account of them." He placed it in my hand. The metal was warm, real, whole. "It's back together," he said, lowering his voice. "So are you." I closed my fist around it. Silent beat. The sound of the BBQ dimmed the hiss of meat on the grill, the guitar humming low voices folding into the soft wind. "Thank you," I said. Frank nodded toward the pallet stage someone had improvised with 2 wooden crates and a lone microphone leaning left. "Looks like they want you to say a few words." I sighed. "I'm not a speech guy." "You already made your speech," he said. "This is just the echo." A moment later, someone tapped the mic, drawing everyone's attention. Conversations tapered. Folding chairs shifted. When I stepped up, the pallet creaked under my boots. I tightened my grip on the repaired keychain and let the guitar strum fade behind me. "I'll keep this short," I said. A few chuckles. "They tried to tow my tractor," I continued. "Twice. With a vendor who didn't have a permit and with papers they had no right to issue." I let the next line settle. The sheriff seized their entire illegal towing operation. A ripple moved across the crowd. Shock, pride, vindication, all mixed. "This isn't about me winning," I said. "It's about all of us finally drawing a line and seeing what happens when someone tries to drag it across our property and call it authority." I stepped back from the mic, no grand flourish, no rehearsed ending. For a heartbeat, the park was quiet. Then applause spread, first small, then rolling, folding over itself. Near the front, a man with a grease-stained cap leaned toward his neighbor and said just loud enough, finally someone fought back. Value line delivered. I looked down at the keychain in my hand whole again and closed my fingers around it as the applause rose. I held the wooden sign steady with one hand and drove the final screw into the crossbeam of my front gate. The oak plank hung straight. The letters carved clean and dark. Farm equipment exempt. Sheriff verified. The words didn't shout, they didn't need to. Quiet truth carries farther than volume. The evening light settled into that warm copper glow we get near the lake, the water catching reflections like brushed metal. Behind me, cicadas buzzed through the trees, a steady drone that filled the air with late summer weight. A faint trace of BBQ smoke drifted from a neighbor's yard, leftover ribs, reheated maybe. I stepped back a few feet, hands on my hips, and looked at the sign. It belonged here, not as a challenge, as a reminder. Footsteps rustled on the gravel. "That's solid work," Frank said. He stopped beside me, squinting at the sign as if checking its alignment. "You eyeballed it?" he asked. "Used a level," I said. "Good," he grunted. "Would have lost sleep otherwise." A few houses down, a small group of neighbors, mostly newer residents, were gathered near the roadside oak tree. They talked quietly the way people do after they watch something big settle into the rearview mirror. On the far sidewalk, Marcia stood with a clipboard pressed to her chest. She looked toward the sign, then away, then back again, never quite willing to let her eyes land long. The HOA power she once wielded like a badge had shrunk around her shoulders. She turned and walked off without a word. Foreshadow resolved. Frank nudged me. "They're waiting for you." "What for?" I asked. "You're the one who took the hit so they wouldn't have to." I walked toward the small group. As I approached, they straightened a little like students waiting for a teacher. A man with a trimmed beard stepped forward. "You're Cody, right?" "Last I checked." He gave a soft laugh, then gestured at the houses behind him. "We moved in last month," he said. "Heard. Well, honestly, we heard a lot. Thought it'd be better if we heard it from you." His wife added, "The refund notice, the bylaw revision, all that stuff. We figured it must have come from something serious." I leaned against the fence post again, arms folded. "It started simple," I said. "They tried to tow my tractor." "Your tractor?" the woman asked. "Yep, twice. First with a notice, then with a tow truck and a fake order that didn't fool a single trained eye." The man frowned. "Fake, as in forged, as in red stamp, no judge name, and a vendor with a suspended permit." I said, "They counted on people being too tired, too polite, or too scared to question it." His eyebrows rose. "So, how'd you stop it?" he asked. "Didn't yell, didn't shove, didn't get dramatic," I said. "I just recorded everything. Every beep from the gate camera, every knock, every word. Paperwork and video don't get nervous." His wife nodded slowly, and the sheriff stepped in. "Sheriff Briggs doesn't care about HOA feelings," I said. "He cares about the law." When he saw the pattern, he seized the whole towing operation. A quiet wow drifted from someone in the back. I held up my hand and ticked off points just like I had the first time. 1. Keep your paperwork. Don't toss notices because they look annoying. 2. Record everything. The moment someone claims authority, your phone becomes your best witness. 3. Go beyond the HOA when you need to. The county answers to the law, not to bylaws written in someone's garage. They listened like people hearing instructions for surviving a storm. At that moment, a slow-moving cruiser rolled down the lane. Sheriff Briggs was behind the wheel. He slowed in front of the house, tipped 2 fingers off the steering wheel, and kept rolling. Frank lifted his chin back at him out of habit. "He likes your sign," Frank said. "We earned it," I replied. We walked back toward the tractor sitting in the driveway, its paint catching the orange sunset. The little hook beside the ignition, once snapped when the keychain hit the pavement, now gleamed silver. Welded clean. I took the brass wrench keychain from my pocket. Restored smooth, no bend, no scar. Slowly, deliberately, I slid it onto the hook. The soft, metallic click landed deeper than it should have. Prop number 3 restored. Full circle. For a moment, I rested my hand on the tractor's hood. No tremor, just steady contact like shaking hands with an old friend after a long misunderstanding. Frank stayed back a few feet, giving space without making it obvious. "You feel done?" he asked. I thought about the seizure order, the refunds, the bylaw revisions, the neighbors who'd finally stopped looking over their shoulders. "I feel settled," I said. A few neighbors lingered near the drive, watching without intruding. The lake glowed. The bugs hummed. A dog barked twice in the distance. Legacy isn't loud. It's steady. I stepped back toward the gate, looked at the sign once more, then at the tractor. "They'll remember this," Frank said. "They should." I answered. "Not for me, for themselves." I turned toward the group and spoke softly, letting the breeze carry the words just far enough. Finally, someone fought back the right way. No applause this time, just nods. The kind of nods that last longer than cheers. The gate stood firm. The sign held true, and the tractor stayed exactly where it belonged. The sun caught the edge of the farm equipment exempt sheriff verified sign at my gate, and for the first time in months, the land felt steady under my boots. I touched the restored brass keychain hanging on the tractor and realized the hearing, the posted orders, and the community standing behind them had repaired more than metal. We learned that boundaries don't defend themselves. You defend them with record-keeping due process and the courage to speak when something feels crooked. Justice isn't loud, it's steady. Finally, someone fought back. Share your HOA story below your map might help someone redraw theirs.